Thank you again for joining us in our study of the book of Amos here on Shalosh 3. It's been a great study of how that Amos has gone into a land that he was not familiar with, a religion he was not familiar with, one that he did not practice. He had to step out of his box, his comfort zone, to go and preach what he's preaching and give the prophecy that he's prophesying. We now come to Amos. Amos will now deal with the northern kingdom's self-satisfied, self-secure, rich society. Secure in their own affluence is what it will be. And in their prominent leadership, that they're the ones that people come to from other nations. And that if they themselves can handle anything that comes their way. The leaders of both the northern kingdom, but also Zion, the southern kingdom of Judah, are mentioned here. And yes, they have both become complacent in their worship and their practice of worship of the Lord God Almighty. They thought they were secure. They thought they were safe. I want you to notice chapter 6, verse 1. Woe to you who are at ease in Zion. There's the southern kingdom. And trust in Mount Samaria, that would be the northern kingdom. Notable persons in the chief nations to whom the house of Israel comes. They're the ones that reach out to those nations. And so they think they're secure because they've got all the wealth of Samaria. Amos says, go to certain cities. Look at verse 2. Go over to Kalnach and see. And from there go to Hamath the great. Then go down to Gath of the Philistines. Are you better than these kingdoms? Or is the territory greater than your territory? Amos says, go to these cities and look and see if they're greater than you. Now, why is he doing that? It seems that Amos is throwing back an irony back to them. It must be in their own ideas that Israel and Judah say within themselves. Look at these countries around us, these such things as Kalnach and also Hamath and especially Gath, that is down where the Philistines were. There is, look at these countries. There is no greater than us. We're better than they are. As if to say, we will not be destroyed like these have or will be. We're greater than them. But that's not the case. They were willing to put off evil things. Look at verse 3. Woe to you who put far off the day of the doom, who caused the seat of violence to come near. Now, other translations are a little bit more clear in some of that. The people who were willing to put off, they were willing to put off hearing about the evil days that they had done themselves, not willing to admit their own evil doings. Yet they had rained terror on their own people, on their own poor, and others less fortunate than they. They did not see. They were doing evil. And so Amos comes against them. I want you to notice, hello, don't we have that in not only in Amos's day, they could not see the evil that men do, and they did admit it even in our days. Our own leaders have done so, grievous evils, and yet they will not even admit it. People will not admit that they have done evil. They'll try to get out of it in court systems and somehow get away from it. Why is that all they would do that? They are too caught up in their own lifestyles and the money and the buying and justice for themselves and no one else. So all of these things that I want you to notice how affluent they were, that somehow that made them safe in what they were doing. That's found in verses 4 through part of verse 6. Notice, who lie on beds of ivory, stretch out on couches, eat lambs from the flock and calves from the midst of the stall, who sing idly to the sound of stringed instruments and invent for themselves or for yourselves musical instruments like David, who drink wine from bowls and anoint themselves with the best oils, but are not grieved for the affliction of Joseph. I want you to notice how affluent they were. They they laid on beds inlaid with ivory. Ivory came from Africa. Therefore, they would have to come bring it up from there, or they got it through trade. They lounged on couches. They didn't have anything else to do. They could eat, they could drink, they could talk, they could just about do anything they wanted to. They could dine on the choice lamb. Now, I don't know if you know anything about lamb or not, but lamb means that it is not older than 1 year old. And when you take the best ones, the choicest ones, the ones that are the best of all, those are the ones reserved for sacrifice. Those are the ones that are reserved without blemish. And they're the perfect sacrifice that you're supposed to use. But yet they were dining on the choice lambs. It says also that they were dining on or eating the best of the calves. Now, I want you to notice that these calves, it was what we would term veal meat, which is also about 1 year old or a little less. And these calves had the choicest of all the meat for it. They also had spent their days strumming on their harps and stringed instruments. Nothing else to do. And if they didn't have an instrument, they'd just make one and then kind of sing their own tune. They would drink wine from bowls. In other words, they drank a lot of it. And yet that means that they would also have parties and banquets. They would call them drinking parties. But add to that, the ladies and others would also anoint themselves with the finest of oils that came from all over the world that they could get. Some translations say lotions, but the word there really means an oil. They do not have a care in the world and do not care themselves about anybody else. They have no compassion on anyone. In our day, many rich and famous eat at the finest restaurants, drink the finest wines, drive the most expensive cars, gamble hundreds and thousands of dollars at the tables and casinos, have multi-million-dollar yachts, estates in the multi-million dollars as well. Some think they can get away with anything, have no regard for God, have no regard for his people, have no regard for his work, have no regard for his righteousness. These prominent ones in all of northern Israel will be the first to go into exile. Look at the last part of verse 6. But are not grieved by the afflictions of Joseph. These they didn't care about the afflictions that's going on in the land. Therefore, they shall now go captive as the first of the captives. And those who recline at banquets shall be removed. You see, the enemy would come and invade, and they didn't take the poor people first. My goodness, they wanted the rich, the famous, the ones that had property, the ones that had, and so they took the upper crust of the nation into captivity first, and then the other classes after them. When that happens, that means all the feasts and all of those banquets and all of those drinking parties and lounges that you lounge around and you don't have a care in the world. All those things are gone. And you've been taken into captive. Having lost all of these things, they put their security and that they put their power into as well. Now, the people would think, well, how can you guarantee this? Amos guarantees that destruction is coming by what the Lord will say next in verse 8. And the Lord has sworn by himself, the Lord God of hosts says. Now, Amos now turns to God's guarantee. The destruction of the great city of Samaria will happen. In its mighty fortresses or palaces, as some translations will say, a complete and total destruction. God guarantees by swearing by himself that Yahweh is trustworthy to carry out this destruction. He swears by himself in his own holiness and power. By his own holiness, he cannot tolerate evil. So he must do something about it. And then not only that, by his own power, the only one that can also destroy the fortresses the palaces, the cities, and take them into captivity. God is the one that does this. Or he'll send the agents of the Assyrians to come in and destroy the city 30 years from now. But God is the one that's doing it. Make no mistake about that. God is the one causing judgment to fall upon the northern kingdom. So many people think that they can somehow buy or work their way or give enough to charities to get them into God's eternity, into his eternal kingdom. None of these things will do that. Or they have the idea that if the opposite, there's no God, so let's just eat, drink, and be merry and do whatever we want to. We got enough money. Tomorrow I may die, so let's just live it up tonight. How sad that is to destroy all that they had been blessed with. Some even think if they are somehow baptized as a baby into a church, then that church will get them to heaven. So, I have no, I can live the way I want to. Only faith in Jesus Christ alone does any of those things. You see, Amos uh, quotes the Lord, and he says, in his holiness, and it's in his holiness, he cannot stand evil whatsoever. Notice what he says: I abhor the pride of Jacob. I hate the pride of Jacob. As if the northern kingdom had anything to be proud of themselves anyway. But they somehow had become very prideful in themselves. And he says he hates the palaces or hates the fortresses. Now, pro- prophecy was written sometimes in parallels. Abhor or hate is parallel to detest. The pride of Jacob is parallel to fortresses. That means that the fortresses that were were built, they took pride in them as if that's going to be their security. And by the language itself, it shows where their heart was. I built up this great fortress. No one is going to be able to destroy it. No one can capture us. No one can take us into exile. Not even God himself. Jacob's pride, Israel's pride, was in their own palaces and in their own cities and in their own selves. They felt secure. They felt prideful because of the work they had done. They would need no security in the Lord. They were secure in themselves. God promises in verse 11, that continues with the thought of 8. Now, 9 and 10 are just aside. God will command to smash and tear down the great palaces and the houses and even the smaller ones. That happens to prideful people. Pride comes before a fall, no matter who they are. And pride of an individual will cause their failure and fall. Amos gives a glimpse into what happens in his day when household is killed in those verses 9 through 10. We'll read those next time. But I want us to leave with the thought is that we should humble ourselves before God each and every day to allow him to use us. And yes, it's him that blesses us. Him is the one that gives us the food we have on the table and everything that we've been given. Thank him and serve him. God bless you for being part of Shalosh 3.